The Tinubu administration promised to reposition the economy, create jobs, and build a $1 trillion economy by 2030. Nigeria's economic future, sustainable growth, or political capture? We'll be finding out tonight. APC leaders in Kano State have pledged to reclaim Kano State from the NNPP in the 2027 general election, and they are throwing their weight behind President Bola Tinubu. Hello everyone, welcome to the program. This is Politics Today, live on China's television. I'm Shunwa Kimbalwe here in Abuja. Let's begin by giving you some quick update. Former APC National Chairman Abdullahi Ganduje, very first time in a long time after he exited the office of the National Chairman of the party, is making some major political comebacks as I met with some Kano APC leaders since his resignation from office. Today makes a major political outing for him, and the APC leaders in the state have pledged to reclaim the state from the NNPP in the 2027 general elections. Ganduje joined other party leaders at a closed-door meeting of the party members from Kano State. The gathering, which held in Abuja, is aimed at strengthening the party structure ahead of the 2027 general elections.
See how we can encourage our people to go and register for the ongoing voter registration exercise. So far we are doing very well, and we want to assure the people of Kano State that our members will register so that during the election we come out in large numbers so that we can win the election.
What the president is doing and what he has done for our nation. We are solely behind him, as said by former national chairman. We are behind him, we are solely behind him because he loves us. We have never asked for anything from him that he has done for us. He has established several things for us, several institutions for our learning, several development projects, and so on and so forth.
Well, with those sound bites, it leads us into giving you some more updates, and I'm going to take you around your world of political roundup.
The chairman of the Board of Benches, Justice Olukayode Ariwola, is urging the newly called lawyers to uphold the integrity of the profession to avoid sanctions. He further advised them to conduct themselves in a manner that will not obstruct the administration of justice. Justice Ariwola said this at the call to bar ceremony in Abuja. And the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. George Akume, is urging secretaries to state governments to embrace technology and adapt to emerging realities in governance. He gave the charge in Jos, the Plateau State capital, during the second quarter meeting of the Forum of Secretaries to the Governments of the Federation and States. The Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Mr. Nyesom Wike, says Abuja will stand shoulder to shoulder with some of the world's best cities before the end of President Bola Tinubu's first tenure. Mr. Wike said this at the flag-off of a major road project linking the Obafemi Awolowo Way to the Airport Expressway. Mr. Wike said the project, known as Solomon Law Way, is part of the President's renewed hope agenda to drive infrastructure, create jobs, and open up new development corridors. The National Orientation Agency is emphasizing that a non-kinetic approach to the fight against insecurity is essential, and this can only be achieved with the support of affected communities. The head of the agency in Kebbi State, Mr. Nasiru Karufi, made this statement during a national enlightenment program organized by the agency in Birnin Kebbi. Mr. Karufi noted that many of those involved in criminal activities are members of the communities and are often well known to local residents.
There you have it. You've been served with your political roundup stories. So let's get down to business. Well, Without the economy, does anything anyone does in government make any sense? The economy has to be the number because citizens has to feed, they have to live, and the government has to function, and all of those things have to happen, and the economy is at the center of it all. So Nigeria's economy has entered a critical turning point. It's over 2 years now, halfway into the government's entire 4-year mandate, and more than 2 years of sweeping reforms. The government says microeconomic stability has been achieved, but behind the headline numbers, many Nigerians are asking, stability for whom? GDP growth slowed to just over 3% in early 2025. Inflation remains stubborn at nearly 23%, and the federal government's debt servicing now outpaces spending on defense, education, health, and infrastructure, all combined. For millions of households, the cost of living crisis is still biting hard. But the Bola Tinubu administration has promised to reposition the economy, create jobs, and build $1 trillion economy by 2030. Yet, subsidy savings are being channeled to debt repayment instead of investments in growth, while poverty and unemployment remain widespread. Citizens and analysts alike are insisting that the next phase of reforms must have a human face, restoring purchasing power. That's a major problem. The value of the money in your pocket, whether it can actually take you home, your take-home pay is just going to sit you in one place and never going to take you home. That has to change, boosting productivity and delivering relief to struggling families. And tonight, we look at all of this, the state of the Nigerian economy, the impact the policies are making. I'm one of those who believe that sometimes when things are so bad and so wrong, you need to stand up and take tough decisions and reform it. But reform at what extent? To what extent? The living standard of Nigerians are highly and greatly impacted. What must this government do to reverse things? Beyond all of that, the economy is how you can win elections. You do good by the people, they pay you back. You do otherwise, they pay you back. That is politics for you. So let's see how the Tinubunomics, the idea of Tinubu's economic agenda and the state of the Nigerian economy, is founded. Tonight, I'm being joined by a very respected voice in the economy sector, Mr. Adetilewa Adebajo. He's an investment banker and economist. He's here tonight to give us some insight. Tonight, we're not just getting insight, we're getting vivid picture of things, how they were and how they are, and the projections into the future. He himself and his company, they've made projections, and it does look like they are now like prophets. They are happening. Mr. Adebajo, it's good to have you join us tonight on the program.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction, Sheil, and the backdrop you've given us. I think very, very pertinent.
Yeah, important. I think for political economics, it's important for you to do analysis based on some value, some basis, some indices. And for me, the conversation on judging Bola Tinubu's economic agenda has to be based on something. One, the promises he made, the things he said he will do. Yes. And now we have to now judge or critique his ideas based on those things he said he will do. Let's remind Nigerians and let's refresh everybody's memory. These are the things Bola Tinubu said he would do. Part of what he said he would do was to remove subsidy. The man said he would remove subsidy. He wasn't the only one who said he was going to remove subsidy, but he did when he got into office. He removed subsidy. He said that there's going to be deregulation, and that, I think, is also, he promised full removal of subsidy. It also talked about exchange rate unification and foreign exchange liberalization. Campaign pledge to float and unify the FX market. So some of these things that President Bola Tinubu promised when they were campaigning to Nigeria. 6% plus GDP growth via investment and power. To target set at 6 to 7% reforms on the way. That's what we're experiencing. 6% growth, GDP growth. We've not seen that happening yet. Just about 4% also as at the Q2 rate. Figures that has been released by the NBS. Targeted safety net and poverty alleviation. The promise is to scale social support, conditional cash transfers. These are some of what the president has promised. Agriculture and rural jobs, youth empowerment. He said he's going to emphasize on agribusiness to absorb rural workforce. He declared state of emergency on food and agriculture. So we're seeing some improvement. Prices, food inflation, drastically impacted on headline inflation, but we're seeing some improvement in prices of commodity. Improved power and infrastructure for livelihoods, better electricity, roads to stimulate small business activity. Is that all that I have for you? Okay, that's all. Now, Mr. Adebajo, these are some of the promises President Bola Tinubu, and I'd like you to start this conversation for us. For any progressive thinking economist or analyst or leader, are these the kind of ideas that we needed at the time he made it and as of now?
I think, yes, everybody has a political manifesto, but I think when you take a look at this political manifesto, I think one of the things that I shared with you today was now the policy advisory document, which was done by his policy subcommittee headed by now Senator Tokunbo Abiru. The current governor of the central bank, Dr. Olayemi Cardozo, was also a member of that committee. So when you take a look at these headline things, it is that policy document that is now forming the basis of our analysis today, because that was a subcommittee that was charged with giving us the details of these programs that have been done. But I think clearly we can give some checklists very quickly into what has been done and what hasn't been done. Fantastic. We know the subsidy has been removed. We know they've unified the FX rate. The issue of the $1 trillion economy remains a mirage because the rate at which we're growing, it's not going to happen. In terms of the other policies which they've gotten right, the social intervention, I think the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of Economy said recently they've disbursed about 330 billion. And the challenges they're having is with NIN and BVN verification, so that they're not paying ghost persons. It's a mixed bag. But I
6% GDP
growth, that remains elusive.
Yeah.
So I think that is really one of the areas where we really need to focus on. Because the GDP growth, I think, is the most important part. Because it's the GDP growth that is going to lift Nigerians out of poverty. We have 150 million Nigerians in multidimensional poverty. The middle class has been erased. So GDP growth and low inflation is really what is going to do the trick. And that still remains elusive. We can now say we're at halftime, going into the second half.
Yeah. Sometimes you might be lucky. And I've seen a comeback. There's once a player who used to play. Interestingly, you are the chairman of the board of stationery store, so you understand these dynamics in football. He is called Andre Arshavin. He used to play for Arsenal, and there was a very interesting match some years back where Arsenal came back when they were 4 goals down, and I think Arshavin scored 2 of those 4 goals. There's some Arsenal fans who are nodding their heads in happiness over there. But as funny as that team is, they played very well on that day. Came back by 4 goals. So when you are halftime, and this came perhaps in the second half of the game, and they came back by 4 goals down. Can we be 4 goals down and come back? Is it possible?
It is possible.
At halftime.
It is possible. And I think one of the things we all agree on, I think, is the fact that we have achieved stability.
Of the naira, of the economy generally.
Of the economy generally. The macroeconomic side, I think we've achieved stability. And I think that everybody agrees on that. But economic reforms and stability is not enough. But at least you need to achieve this stability to now begin to build on that stability. And what are the most critical aspects of it? I think the most important thing right now, I think that the Minister of Finance has done, and the Coordinating Minister of Economy, is that he has stopped ways and means financing. Ways and means financing being stopped has helped us to achieve this significant amount of stability. The fact that inflation has been stubborn, because you know that by the removal of what happened was that I was in support of the reforms, but I wasn't happy the way the subsidy was removed and the FX unification was managed, because the central bank did not hold monetary policy committee meetings at critical times. They didn't hold 2 consecutive monetary policy committee meetings, which they should have hiked rates, and they did not. So that, and with the 7 trillion ways and means financing, which they drew down in their first 7 months, it impacted negatively on Naira, and Naira went all the way to 1,900. By the following year, however, they took control of the situation, and right now I think we can say that we have what I will call cohesion and parity, and also synchronization and alignment between monetary policy and fiscal policy. And that's in its sense, and the 5 consecutive months of disinflation is what gave the Monetary Policy Committee the confidence to begin to cut rates. So I will say that apart from being at halftime, the economy is also at a point of inflection. And when I mean a point of inflection, it is what you are saying. It is time now that we've turned that corner, and now that to use your own parlance, the football parlance, it is time to stage that comeback. And in order to stage that economic comeback, there needs to be consistency with these same policies. Because now that you've achieved this stability, you need to grow. And how do you need to grow? Government needs to curb its spending. And one of the things I'm happy about now is that the central bank governor in the last MPC has increased the CRR for non-TSA deposits to 75%. The Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of Economy has now been given the powers to be able to approve spending, because no spending can be done now without the Minister of Finance issuing the certificates. So what that means is that Coordinating Minister of Finance, of the Economy, and Minister of Finance is now in control of how we can spend money, and working with the central bank, we can now begin to see how they can curb that. If they can curb that, the target is that we should get to 12% inflation. The analysis which I showed you in terms of the correlation between GDP growth, interest rates, and inflation, will show you that if Nigeria is at 12% inflation, our economy will grow at least 8% or more. And that is what we need on a sustainable basis.
And that was a prediction that you've made earlier, to say there is a relationship between your inflation and your growth rate, your GDP growth rate. And you've shown in that graph, I don't know if they can put that on the screen, the relationship between the GDP growth rate and inflation. And we saw that more than many, many years in this country, we've never, in fact, in history, I'm not sure we have ever experienced such a rate, a point in inflation rate. We moved from single digit, about 9%,
exactly.
5-6 years down the line, we're in double digit, and we're even flying. And things got so bad that it's now very difficult. We rebased the economy, and so we're having to deal now with the big question of, and I'd like you to be frank with that. You say it the way it is, Mr. Adebacho. What we are experiencing now, is it for real? Is it the real figures in terms of, yes, the macroeconomy side of things are looking good, but the micro is still, people are not feeling, because they say, oh, Mr. Adebacho said things are, but the fact is that the man who is the microeconomy side of him is not feeling it just yet. Why?
Why? And I'll tell you why. I think, first of all, yes, the rebased numbers did give some distortions on the flow down of inflation, because you have to be very careful not to compare the old inflation rates with the new inflation rates. And I think what the MBS should have done is to give us 2 figures of inflation, the old rates and the new rates.
Isn't the same index by which they evaluate it?
Exactly. So you can get an idea of what the benchmark is. So everything will even out by first quarter next year. But what I can assure you is the fact that I think that the deceleration or disinflation, I think, is real. But in order for us to begin to feel it, we've become a sachet economy, as you've said. Everything is in sachets because of purchasing power, and the middle class has been eroded. So in order for us to feel this impact, inflation has to come down to 12% or below. It is when inflation reaches 12%, it's now at 20%. So until we get inflation to like 12%, we cannot begin to feel the impact at the macro level. And as you've talked about, the emphasis now is to focus on the micro level, on the households, job creation. Another question that the administration said was job creation. They haven't told us how many jobs have been created. You know, what is the level of unemployment and how many jobs are being created? Productivity, which is reflected in GDP. These are the issues now that the government now has to focus on in order for us to have that economic comeback you're talking about in the second half.
Let's look at what really, and I'm going to link the inflation, the headline inflation, and how it has flown over the past quarters. And we go into the food inflation, then we now go to what matters to a lot of our viewers tonight about the food and the commodities, which is very critical. A troubling effect on the headline inflation is the food inflation. But let us see. It looks like some good news, although rebased, but this is what we saw from January up until July, and this is how things have flown. We've seen that decline, which gives us some good news, isn't it, Mr. Adebayo?
That's right. We're at 20% now with inflation.
Yes. Good news. And can we achieve that 12% with the manner in which we're going?
Yes, it's
all things being equal.
It's a process. The key thing is government expenditure. As I've said earlier,
needs to drag it down.
If the coordinating minister of the economy with his powers he has now and the 75% CRR, if we can curb government expenditure, then there should not be any reason why we can't get inflation to 12% or more.
Look at what happened in January.
Yes.
24%. Unbelievable. We went as far as
30.
30.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
It was nice.
In your own life, have you ever seen that?
No, and that's because of the Ways and Means. The Ways and Means was 23 trillion.
Blame Buhari government.
No, Buhari was 23 trillion and the Tinubu administration was 7 trillion. So now it's 30 trillion. So the impact of the Ways and Means is what we're paying for now. And now that this government has stopped the Ways and Means, you're beginning to see that stability. So we need to continue along this trend. It's difficult, and we need to be able to. It's painful, but it's now time for people to get the relief. That is why the social intervention programs are important. And now I think what is important now is that what steps our government is taking now to increase productivity.
Let me put you on the spot, Mr. Adebayo. Is Tinubu doing the right thing?
Tinubu administration or the...
No, I put it right on his desk.
You mean
the CEO
of the
economy. Is he doing the right thing?
From what we're seeing now, I think that I can see the policies in the right direction. The only issue I have with this administration is the fiscal spending. It's a bit reckless, and it needs to be curtailed. And I think that is really what is driving core inflation. If you take a look at discounting inflation, food inflation, let's take food inflation out. It's something they can control if they fix the insecurity and boost agriculture. You're looking at energy inflation. It's something that also might be out of the control of government directly because they've removed the subsidy. Fuel prices has to be market driven. We understand that. So let's focus on discounting food inflation and energy inflation. We get core inflation. What is the key driver of core inflation? It's fiscal expenditure. So, and I think that with the powers that has been given to the coordinating minister of economy now, I think he can put that in check. And if we continue along these lines, I think we can do that. So that is my only concern. If they can bring that in, then I think, and if the Minister of Finance, the coordinating minister of the economy and the Minister of Finance continues his policies, if monetary policy continues along these lines, then I think that we can get the desired results.
So let's flip it and let's look at the food inflation, which is a major driver, or played a major role in how we saw the headline inflation drive through the sky. And what I was also going to say, is some very brilliant chaps are in this government, no doubt. And I make an example of this first-class guy who is heading FRS, Zach Adedeji.
Yes.
Very brilliant chap. And it looks to me that Tinubu has his hands very, very strong on revenue generation. We've not seen this level of revenue generation. Maybe from January, we'll even have a more digitized revenue. We have a dashboard where we can be able to monitor things. Those who don't pay, we start paying. We capture properly. We plug the loopholes. Maybe we'll see more revenue. Could our revenue thirst or ability also help in driving down inflation?
Oh, yes. I mean, without a doubt. I mean, because what is happening is the fact that, don't forget that the inflation management is coming at a high cost to the government because you have to keep interest rates high. Government has to pay a high rate of interest for their borrowing. So it is from these revenues that government is going to service its debt and to be able to bring down inflation. So government also needs that revenue to pay the high interest rates to be able to service the debts to bring down inflation. So once inflation comes down to 12% or below, also the cost of borrowing comes down. And government also has more money at its disposal to do more. Because as you've said in your own introduction, the biggest expenditure line for government today is debt service. So it is also in government's interest to see that inflation comes down to 12% so that they can also reduce the cost of borrowing. Then government has more money at their disposal to be able to spend on social infrastructure. So for me, that is the key. But like I've said, there has to be a plan. And the absence of what I see now is the fact that while we have monetary and fiscal policy in alignment, the only policies that are not yet in alignment is trade policy, investment policy, and industrial policy. We need to set up things for productivity. Now, how are we going to grow the economy? This is where the private sector comes in. Foreign direct investment has also been dismal, Sheung.
Yeah.
So when you take a look at that also, it was only 129 million in the first quarter. If we continue at this rate, FDIs is going to be less than 500 million. Portfolio investment was about $5.5 billion in the first quarter of the year.
And it's coming down.
Yes, but it's quite
not good enough.
It's not good enough, but it's quite healthy. But as you can see, we've made progress in terms of our debt to revenue service ratios and a lot of all these debt ratios. But it is also in the interest of government for the interest rates to come down. But really, for me, my own focus now is on growth.
Yeah.
I want to see what policies this government is going to put in place to drive growth. Take, for instance, we have 5 sugar refineries in Nigeria, okay, owned by Bua Flour Mills, Dangote. And what we are asking ourselves is the fact that most of these sugar refineries are importing. So, but why are Nigerian farmers not being engaged to grow the sugarcane? We have the land, we have the resources.
At least reduce the importation,
yes,
that deficit and the burden.
Exactly. We have a Niger Sugar Council. What are they doing? So these are the practical steps that I see that will increase productivity. And we don't need to import this when we have that, and they've already made the investment in there. It was the same thing with cement. Now we need to take a look at our entrepreneurs, local direct investments, the companies that are in Nigeria today. What is government doing to ensure that they have expansion plans to support the economy? Because it's now about productivity and creating employment. So what are you doing to support the households? How do we grow this economy? Because you talk about revenue, very impressive revenue targets, but don't let's forget that we used to spend between $10 to $15 billion on the subsidy. Now that we're not spending that money now is beginning to come back into the system, and we're beginning to see it in our revenue situation. And of course, with the more aggressive revenue generation efforts, is also helpful. But now government has $15 billion a year that it was not spending on subsidy to be able to use to develop infrastructure and update social infrastructure also. So what is important now for me is the micro in terms of productivity. Where is Dangote's next project? Dangote spent $18 billion on a refinery. The next project that has that size of investment in Nigeria is the LNG. LNG is spending $8 billion on Train 7. But LNG is complaining that they don't have gas. So they have cancelled Train 8. So we need to get those big projects back on track. So government needs to be able to supply, get gas to LNG so that they can commit to Train 8. Then what is Otedola doing? Where is his next $6 billion investment? Samad Isiaku, where is his next investment? The Wale Tinubus of this world, our entrepreneurs. Because this next phase is not going to be driven by government. And maybe, it's going to be driven by private sector.
Maybe. And our non-oil revenue.
Yes.
Good news that we've seen a huge lift in that sector. I'm happy about that.
But Sean, you know that the oil sector only contributes 6% to our GDP.
Absolutely.
So it's not
our dependency on it, but there's been an improvement that
our economy, our non-oil revenue should be higher because
in the real sense
because oil is only 6% of our GDP.
And I remember this in 2014 or 2016, Daddy, when the world experienced recession. If America was a bit so hard on a lot of American companies. For example, American car companies like what's the name of these car company? Ford had a problem, and you will remember
Obama intervened.
The government intervened,
yes,
and it does something because you have huge population of people being employed. Dangote, for example, is the highest employer of labor. You are mentioning some of the entrepreneurs. What about Mike Adenuga? Those who have more than 3-4 business chains who are employing a lot of people. You cannot afford this business to die or to suffer. Is it now the time for the government to find some level of subvention, some level of help to make sure that the entrepreneur, because without the private sector, you're finished as an economy.
Yeah, you cannot. And that's what I'm saying, that now it's time for you to look at local direct investments. Where is your intervention? And that's why I'm saying now that we have the alignment. Like I said, everything is on track. There's no doubt about that. I think we all agree on that. Now that we've achieved this stability, it's a point of inflection. This is the first time we've cut rates in 5 years. So it's a major, significant confidence booster to the growth of the economy. So, but you need to sustain it. And that's why I'm saying what I don't see is trade, investment, and industrial policy. What incentives are you giving? We're talking about those, I'm even talking about Nigerian entrepreneurs. They're also foreign entrepreneurs. They're also the SMEs. They're also the tech companies. AI is also big. How many AI databases are we going to be building in Nigeria? That's the new growth sector. A population of 200 million people needs its own data. So we need our own AI databases whereby we should be able to invest in that sector. So these are areas of growth that we need to look at.
The reality is this, yes, we're looking at some of these sectors, but in the real sense of it, the biggest money spinners in global economy. And not even in these sectors, they are in the tech sector.
Exactly.
And the top 20 companies in this world, they are the Nvidias of this world, the Facebook, the Google of this world, the Microsoft. These are the big money. And I'm wondering when Nigeria will be able to leapfrog in joining what has become a fast track of next level of industrialization.
Well,
playing catch up.
You saw what happened when Obasanjo liberalized the telecom sector and that was what created a major boost to our GDP. Now that these telecom sectors have built their backbone, we need to build on that sector because we have the base technology for AI, for databases, and a lot of all those things. So we already have the base. So this is what I'm trying to say is that where is the next level?
And we need to look inwards.
We need to look inwards.
We need to be ingenious to be able to
We have 200 million people.
We have population is a bullet.
Yes.
You have the population.
Well, we ought to be careful so that our population is an asset, not a liability.
Absolutely.
Right now, our population is a liability because 150 million people are in poverty and they don't have purchasing power.
Just a moment. Give me a moment, Mr. Adebajo. I've seen some bad news in the report which you share with me, how Nigeria now stands on the continent. We are not a big boy like they used to. We were younger big boys. We're not now a big boy as we used to think. And again, we know that we've been running a gbese economy. If you know what gbese means a debt economy, where you have over 20-something% of your budget used in servicing debt. Yeah, it's a gbese economy. We've run rent economy in the past. But if Mr. Adebayo says it looks like we're on the right track, how can we sustain it? Is sustainability for whom? Is the Tinubu government on the right track and doing the right thing? And it touches the life of the average person. We'll be asking some of these critical questions because they matter. Right after this break, everyone. Join us again. Everyone for staying with us. Those figures we're showing you earlier, very important. And I'll take Mr. Adebayo, who has been speaking with us. Mr. Adetilewa Adebayo is an investment banker and economist. Let me take you to food inflation and perhaps show our viewers some figures as to the price of commodities. So you see what food inflation looked, and I don't know why there was a rise in July based on the MBS figures. But look, like we saw in the headline inflation, things were in the red in January, and it started going down like that. And this is what we have as the last figure from the MBS. But the one thing is this: the prices of the commodity, and I use some of the commodities that are a bit more popular, which I like to understand, which matters to a lot of my viewers tonight, who are watching and wondering when will these prices, some of them who had gotten so upset and really worried about how some of these commodities have gone to, like rice, beans, palm oil, and all of that. But look at this for us, Mr. Adebayo. Make sense of the food inflation. Can we see it being driven down? Well, we're looking at 12% for headline inflation.
Yes, you see, what has happened is the fact that, don't forget that when subsidy was removed and fuel prices went up, it was a direct impact because of the cost of transportation on food inflation. Food inflation also has components of insecurity because a lot of our productive farmers are in the IDP camps. Okay, so now, as the year is going on, a lot of the rebasing has taken place, and you can see that, food inflation is on the decline. So what is important is that the trajectory is on the decline. And again, like I said, it was this disinflation over a sustained 5-month period that gave the MPC the confidence to be able to cut rates. So I think food inflation has been stubbornly high, and also energy inflation. And that is why it's important that you discount food inflation and energy inflation and focus on core inflation and focus on what is driving core inflation.
How can we, food is very important.
So food is a security issue.
It's a security issue. And I see the efforts being made, intentional importation of some grains. And also, I think it is important to encourage more people, whether to inject more money, put it in private hands in terms of some kind of subventions to ensure that we are producing more, and perhaps in a shorter, medium-term policy design to say this particular food item, after how many years, we are not going to allow importation. Because as long as we keep, and we did that with rice at some point, as long as we depend on importation, I don't know, we are just a fan of anything that is not produced here.
Well,
cars, so when the car is produced here, when they say it's a foreign rice, they say, give me the foreign rice. It's a foreign beans. Even foreign gari, it's so funny that even adire that is being produced in some part of Shaki, in Ogun State and the rest. China is producing under shorter time. They will produce adire, and if you're not careful, they will kill the adire economy. And that's why I'm worried. What can we do? The president promised. He said, you know what he said? He said, if I cannot give you stable power supply, don't vote for me.
Okay.
And these are the two things I have mentioned.
Great. Let's take a look at the issue first of your food inflation. Agriculture is the biggest component of our economy, about 23% of our GDP. So it's critical that we shouldn't pay lip service to it. And food security is also very important. What is important now is that the challenge is that our most productive farmers are in IDP camps. And that's a problem.
displaced from Benue, Nasarawa,
everywhere.
the food production hub.
Our food basket.
Yeah,
So,
even Sokoto
exactly.
and Borno.
So a lot of all those insecurities impacting because you have productive people in IDP camps. So I think it's important that government should find a way to secure their farming zones for them to be able to go back and get farming done, to be able to increase productivity. So it's also important to understand pricing because even when we have a good harvest, because of the way our currency has been devalued, a lot of people from abroad want to come, from the neighboring countries, want to come and buy up our grain. And I think we should have a policy whereby all those things are banned because food security is very important. So we need to take a look at our agricultural policies and see how we can ban certain things from being exported because even when harvest comes, because of the way our naira is, it's attractive to come in to buy grain here. So certain things should be stopped from being exported because we need to charity begins at home.
Exactly.
So that's very important.
And you know how that impacted on oil production in Nigeria. You produce there cheap Nigerian oil being sold in neighboring countries.
Yes. So that's, again, subsidy has eliminated that.
Yeah.
So that's a positive. So going back also, we need to look at our agricultural policies. State governments need to be able to provide large tracts of land for commercial investments. If you take a look at companies like Olam, they have 10,000 hectare farm in Nasarawa State. Now, to be able to spray those farms, they use aircrafts. So, and their production is very significant. We need to have at least 6 or 7 of those, or 10 of those sort of farms in Nigeria to be able to boost production and to be able to support the value chain with the smallholder farmers.
And
that is what we're not doing.
Dr. and the Brazilians. Well, maybe Dr. Abiodun has not even said it, but I'm aware with some deals that have been signed. Yes. And Ogun State is very lucky. You know what happened? When the president went to Brazil, some interesting things happened, and Ogun State became one of the biggest, that we would be one of the biggest beneficiaries of the Brazilian agricultural investment.
Exactly, and this is what I'm saying, because you see, Olam works industrial. It cost them about $15 million just to build their irrigation system. These farms cost about $100 million to put up. So if you can invest $200 million in 5 places, $1 billion, and the governors have to be able to provide the land. And this is where the problem, we're not talking about 1,000 or 2,000 hectares anymore. You need to provide 10,000 hectares of contiguous land. What Governor Dr. Abiodun has done with the Brazilians is that he's partnered with them, and not only with the Brazilians for the livestock side, but he's also doing cotton. So he's provided huge tracts of land for cotton production and to be able to set up a cotton mill and a textile production hub. So what is important is that we need to review our agricultural policy and commercialize it because you need to replicate what Olam has in Nasarawa State. We need at least 10 of those farms in Nigeria. They're highly mechanized. You talk about the Brazilians. They don't, if you want to spray that farm, an aircraft has to go and spray the pesticides. If you want to apply fertilizers, the sort of tractors that run those farms and the sort of automation and mechanization, they're highly specialized farms, and a lot of them are using GPS technology. So that is where we need to prove the investment. So what Governor Dr. Abiodun is doing in Ogun State needs to be replicated in every part of this country.
Maybe President Tinubu needs to restart the Operation Feed the Nation.
Exactly.
Because I think we need to feed the nation.
Definitely, because food security is very critical.
It's real security.
If you have that, then you can bring down your food inflation and you can control that. So food, we need to look at food now as a national security issue. So those policies have to be framed around it, that this is a national security issue and needs to be addressed accordingly.
Quickly, and I said it in that teaser before I went on break, that we are a basic economy, where you are you're servicing your debt with almost 26% of your budget, of almost 60 trillion naira budget. That's insane. And we need to, and most of, like you said, most of the revenue will now go into servicing the debt. But how have we fared under this government in terms of basic? Is this government doing more basic, or is doing less basic?
Well, when you say more or less, I think it's relative, because if you take a look at the debt profile now, it's at 150 trillion naira. Okay, so, but then there's devaluation of
That's a major problem.
Because devaluation has happened. So you see, one of the things that I've said with the narrative of debt in this country is that we must separate our debt reporting. You see, because the Debt Management Office gives us a distorted reporting. You have to separate Naira debt from dollar debt. If you take a look at this chart now of what the Debt Management Office has done, they're reporting the total public debt at $97 billion or 149 trillion Naira. Okay, what they should do is to tell us that the debt in Naira, which is domestic debt that we're interested in, is 78 trillion Naira. That is the domestic debt. That's what we want to know. And the foreign debt is $51 billion. So that the total external debt is $45 billion. That's all we need to know. So the foreign debt, report it in dollars. The domestic debt, report it in Naira. Don't now convert the foreign debt into Naira, because you do it at an exchange rate that will distort those numbers. So if you take a look at the foreign debt has been quite stable. As a matter of fact, it's been reducing because we've not been very active on the Eurobond market. And most of that debt is mostly multilateral debt from the World Bank, bilateral debts from other countries, and of course the Eurobond debts. And of course we can focus on our total domestic debt, which is 78 trillion Naira. Okay, so now when you take a look at that debt profile, you compare it to the GDP on the rebased numbers, you can see that a lot of debt to revenue and debt to GDP ratios are also coming down. But the essence of debt sustainability was discussed recently with the World Bank and the IMF, which take a look at the medium-term debt strategy. So the medium-term debt strategy is a tool that the World Bank and the IMF use to determine the sustainability of our debts. So that exercise was done recently, and it came out quite okay. But what it's saying is that the fact that the parameters have shifted. Now we have what you call some financial circuit breakers in Nigeria, the Fiscal Responsibility Act, which tells government that government cannot borrow to pay salaries. Government cannot find its deficit must not be within a certain amount. So with this government now, one or two aspects of that has been breached. But what the debt sustainability exercise is now saying is that there's need for fiscal reform. So we need to upgrade that Fiscal Responsibility Act in line with this new debt sustainability strategy to reflect current realities. So that is what we have not done. But in terms of our debt sustainability, I think the World Bank and the IMF have given us a pass back on that. But there's still a misalignment. And we need to stop reporting local debts from domestic
We need to
debts.
go on another break, but quick one, Mr. Adebayo. Has Tinubu borrowed more in the last year compared to the last government?
We'll have to do that analysis. So we can look at it and see how it is.
In a percentage?
Whether you look at it as whole or percent. You see, this is what I'm trying to say. First of all, let us separate dollar debt. How much did he borrow? And
local debt.
Borrow in dollars, and how much did he borrow locally?
Especially because you now see the way dollar, the parity.
So we need to separate.
So it's a very, very
so we now
tricky
say,
one.
okay, how much did Buhari borrow in dollars? How much did Tinubu borrow in dollars? How much did Buhari borrow in Naira? And how much did they borrow in dollars? Don't lump everything together.
All right. Give me another moment. But when we come back, we'll be concluding this conversation on the growth. How can we achieve that growth? Plus, I told you earlier, Nigeria is no longer a big boy. We have our seniors in terms of economy on the continent. We'll be right back after this break. With us. Our closing moment now with Mr. Adesulewa Adebajo, an investment banker and economist, making sense of where we are under the Tinubu government in terms of the economy and where we are headed. But let me quickly touch on something that we talked about earlier, the prices of commodities in the market, food most especially, where they were before Tinubu got into, when Tinubu got into office, where were they when things spiked in 2024, this time last year, and where are they now? Take a look at it, Mr. Adebajo. Rice, interestingly, 50 kg of rice was at 35,000 naira when President Bola Tinubu got into office. It went last year as high as almost 100,000 naira, 96,000. And now it's dropped to 70,000 naira. It's still not gone back to the old ways. Beans, 30,000. as when President Tinubu got into office, 137,000 naira. A lot of Nigerians love beans, but things were too expensive. 65,000 naira is dropped down. Fantastic performance in the area of beans. Palm oil, I don't know what is happening in palm oil. 29,000 as when President Tinubu got into office, 52,000 this time last year. A year later, 65,000. It's gone even higher. It's not wanting to go down. Very stubborn commodity. Flour, the same thing, Mr. Adeba. I don't know what those two commodities have in common. 29,000, 63,000, 65,000. That's how it has progressed. Let's look at cement. A bag of cement sold at 4,000 naira when President Tinubu got into office. He went as high as 9,000 and now 11,000. But look at crate of eggs and the loaf of bread. These are things that are important. Nutrition is very key. But how many people can afford a loaf of bread? 1K when Tinubu got into office. 2K last year, it stayed at 2K. Thank you to those bread makers who have not allowed it to go beyond that. But crate of eggs too has stayed the same way. These are key commodities, Mr. Adebando.
Fantastic research here. Yeah. Fantastic research.
Thank you.
You see, this is what you call fact-based reporting. And you see, when you take a look at food inflation, you can see that while we have a few things have come down, some of it has remained and some has even gone further up. But the fact that we can now begin to see the impact of inflation, the impact of devaluation on what has been seen. So it is now up to the authorities to take a look at how they're going to intervene to be able to see that, because we know what has come up and what has gone down. So the decline is what you are seeing.
Mr. Adebayo, we have only 20 seconds to go.
Yes.
Growth, how can we achieve it?
Bring inflation down to 12% or less and grow the economy by 8 to 10%, and all of Nigeria will benefit.
That's the answer.
20 seconds.
Thank you so much. Adetilewa Adebayo, investment banker, economist, fantastic human being. Thank you so much indeed for your time tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you for a fantastic show today.
Thank you so much indeed. Well, that's our show for today. The economy may not be smiling, but we smile you out of this show tonight. Thanks so much, everyone. I'm sure Kimberly. God bless Nigeria.